Hey everybody, and welcome. It's Monday. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving, and because it is Thanksgiving, and there's many things for Amedeus to be thankful for, he will not be with us today, and he'll be enjoying hopefully a very nice Thanksgiving with his family. We hope that you all are enjoying the day. Of course, it is a lovely Monday, and what a weekend it was, huh? I mean, seriously. When you think about college football, it was good to see the Red River rivalry back. It was good to see it was meaningful. Oklahoma, of course, took care of business, beat Texas. That was a major game this weekend. Maryland played Ohio State. We talked about Maryland and Ohio State playing, this weekend, and the fact that Maryland played them tough for basically 3 quarters. It was a good football game. The fourth quarter, however, Coach Loxley and his Terrapins just couldn't hang with the Buckeyes, and so it was a tough situation there. I must say two things. One, amazing game between Arizona and Southern California. They kept me up till the wee hours of Sunday morning. It was worth it. It was a 3 overtime win for the Trojans. Southern Cal is playing well enough to keep. See, there's a note to Mario Cristobal. Now, let me just say, I did TV of the Hurricanes when Mario played for the Canes, okay? So I have respect for him. I like him as a person. I think he's a good coach. I just think Saturday night he had what had to be one of the biggest meltdowns, and will continue to be talked about as one of the biggest meltdowns in college football in years. When he didn't chose not to have his team take a knee, which would have been a simple thing to do, with 24 seconds left to go in the game, and they were up by 3 over. They were up over Georgia Tech. There was a fumble. Tech goes down. They score. They win. Miami's no longer undefeated. Those are the kind of bonehead moves that can cost you, in this case, an opportunity for an ACC championship, because you're going to have to play Florida State, right? If your only loss was to Florida State and you went to the championship game, then, that could be what propels you, if you were to beat them, propels you to a potential opportunity to be in the playoffs. That is no longer the case for Miami. They're not going to be a 2-loss team. They're going to have to beat Florida State. That's, not likely. Possibly, of course, but not likely. And so Coach Cristobal, who, as I said before, somebody I like, I respect, I just don't get it. I mean, Mario, what were you thinking? I mean, seriously, dude. This was just a catastrophic disaster. So, but the Canes were lucky. I mean, they stuck in the 25th spot on the AP Top 25 poll. Now, let me go to that AP poll before we get to the NFL. And trust me, there's enough of the NFL to talk about, and number of bonehead moves there, too. But let's take a look. All right, Georgia, number one. Now, Georgia just, absolutely, went out and just crushed this weekend. So we don't have to worry about Georgia. Georgia's 6-0. Michigan is 6-0. Georgia faces Vanderbilt this week. That's a 12 o'clock game. Also at noon this week, Indiana's going to take on against Michigan. Ohio State 5-0 is going to take on Purdue. They're at Purdue. Honestly, I don't know Ohio State. I still think Ohio State's too high ranked. I know that they won. I know that they're undefeated. Florida State just keeping on. They Virginia Tech. They're in the number 4 spot, And so the Seminoles are still in the top 5. Jumping to number 5 is the Sooners with that big win over Texas. Hanging at number 6 is Penn State. Now, Washington and Oregon. It's an absolute and total insanity. Washington and Oregon are better than, clearly, than Penn State, Ohio State. My mind, they're at least the number 2 and 3 teams in the country. Absolutely, without question. They're the they should be number 2 and number 3. We face each other this weekend. It's a game that's going to be played in Oregon. In Washington, which of course will be in Seattle. That's a fantastic, beautiful stadium up there, and it really is. This is an opportunity. One of these teams should be in the picture for the national championship, and we'll find out. We've got Michael Penix Jr., kid from Tampa, who has found his way to Washington. He's just balling out. You got Bo Nix, of course, doing an outstanding job at Oregon. So those two guys will face off. It's a national game. It's a 3:30 start here on the East Coast. And I'll tell you, we've been talking about it all season long, and now it's coming. So coming this weekend is going to be Oregon-Washington in that game being played at the Husky Stadium in Seattle. It's going to be fantastic, something to watch it. But, obviously we're going to delve into that much deeper. Texas number 9 hanging into the top 10 after their loss to Oklahoma. Seems about right. Now, SC remains undefeated, okay? They face Notre Dame, and that's going to be a game in South Bend. That's the prime time game on the East Coast, which is a 7:30 kick on NBC this week. It's a long-awaited game. Everybody's looking forward to seeing it. It's going to be tough. I mean, Notre Dame's defense has gotten is good. There's no question about that. However, they lost to Louisville. Okay, there's no way getting around that. And SC is a better football team than Louisville. Okay, there's no question about that. So USC, who got the living daylight scared out of them by, an Arizona team that they beat in triple overtime, they might have been looking forward, to the Notre Dame game and not paying attention. So that's not a good thing, but we'll see. It's going to be SC and Notre Dame. I think that's going to be fantastic. So we're going to have some really good games on Saturday. So SC taking on Notre Dame, looking forward to it. That's number 10, Notre Dame, SC. Alabama's 11. They get Arkansas this week. That's no easy task either. North Carolina is number 12. They are also undefeated. They face Miami, and that game will be played at Chapel Hill. Big game for Miami, big game for North Carolina. If Miami hopes, as I said before, to make it to a title game, their hopes goes through North Carolina, and that's going to be a very, very tough game in the ACC. Ole Miss at 5-1. They play at Auburn. That's always a tough game. Louisville, who surprised a lot of people. They're 6-0, folks, and 14th ranked. They take on the Pitt Panthers. That game will be played, of course, at what used to be Heinz Field. So I'm going to call it Heinz Field. I know it's a Central Park now, but it's Heinz Field and always will be to me. 6-0 Louisville at Pitt this week. Oregon State, okay, good football team. They're going to take on UCLA. That is going to be a battle. That game is going to be, again, that's a prime time game. It's a Pac-12 showdown. And, Oregon is a big game for both of those teams. That'll be 8 o'clock on the East Coast this weekend. Okay, number 16, Utah. They are 4-1. Again, way, way, way underrated, okay? Now, they play Cal. Now, Cal has played some tough games, all right? They've balled out themselves this year. Cal plays against Utah. I don't know if we're going to see Cam Rising. They're coming out of the bye week. A lot of people have said, coming out of the bye week, Cam Rising will be ready. Look, if Utah is going to win the Pac-12, and that's a long way to go, but let me just say, I think Utah's a good football team. Utah, obviously, they have to beat California, but Cam Rising has got to be there. Okay, very, very soon, no question about it. All right, Duke 4-1. They're playing NC State this week. That's also a night game. That'll be a prime time 8 o'clock. Talked about UCLA. They are playing against Oregon State. We have 15 taking on 18. Obviously, whoever wins that game is going to advance in that absolutely killer Pac-12. Washington State, Pac-12, 4-1. They take on an Arizona team that we said had a wonderful weekend, playing hard against a Southern Cal team. And yeah, I know, look, there's no moral victories, got that. But at the end of the day, Arizona balled out. So does Washington State. That's going to be a good game. 19 for that. All right, speaking of 19, Tennessee is at Texas A&M this week. They're 4-1. Notre Dame, because Notre Dame 5-2. Hosts SC. That game is, of course, as I said before, the big game on NBC this week. And if they lose that game, which is USC, that would give them 3 losses. It's going to be tough for Notre Dame to do anything with 3 losses. LSU, after crush and win, they're going to take on Auburn. That'll be at home. That'll be a tough one. Kansas, 5-1. Again, they might be underrated. Kansas, I saw this week, very good football team. At Oklahoma State, that'll be a 3:30 game on the East Coast on Saturday. Kentucky hosts Missouri. Missouri's played well. Kentucky, better team. We got Mark Stoops, the Stoops family there. He, of course, has a solid team with Kentucky. So I think they're going to beat Missouri. That should be a win for them as they move on. And then the number 25 team, as we talked before, 4-1. Miami should be 5-0. Should be 5-0, but they're not. So there you go. Hey, there's something that's never happened before, guys. And that is the perennial power in college basketball. North Carolina, Duke, USC. Okay? We're talking about Arizona, all of them. I'm sorry, not Arizona. Are all ranked in the top 25. And, that's something we don't normally see. You don't see the quote-unquote predominant basketball schools being ranked, in football. So something that's really never happened before is happening now. So anyway, very interesting situation with the top 25 in college football this past weekend. Okay, so there you go for that one. Let's take a look now over at the NFL and some of the headlines. I don't know if you watched it last night, but the 49ers totally dismantled the Cowboys. Now, gotta say, very, very impressed with the way the 49ers played. I mean, the balance was just ridiculous. I mean, they had everything going their way. Defense was just balling out. They were great. Just a really good, solid football team on both sides of the ball. Christian McCaffrey, give me a break. I mean, the guy is just, all-purpose man. He is everything, okay? Absolutely everything. He is just playing great, for that team. Brock Purdy's going good. You got all those guys that can play on that team. They're just having a great year. The Eagles, do what they do. They stay undefeated. They don't get the style points the 49ers do, but again, they're still there. The Steelers, have played well enough to put themselves at the top of their division after beating the Ravens yesterday in a game where you got to wonder what was Jim Harbaugh thinking. John Harbaugh, excuse me. because they just didn't show up in the second half. So there's a lot to be said in that. In what's going on with the Ravens. They got to get that thing back together pretty quickly, or they're not gonna be around. A lot of tonight is the. I know a lot of you all are big fans of the NHL. We're going to get to that. The NHL starts this week, and I know a lot of folks are excited about that whole situation there, and and we will keep you up to date on what's going on with both the NHL and the NBA, both of whom are going to be starting very, very soon. Okay, very, very soon. So there you go with that. Fun situation with both, as I said before, the top 25 in college football. And now let's take a look at our power rankings for this week as we take a look at the NFL. As I said before, you got to have the 49ers at the top of that list. I mean, come on, give me a break. Brock Purdy is just absolutely, he's finding his receivers. George Kittle, last night, I mean, there wasn't anything that they threw in his direction that he didn't catch. Christian McCaffrey, as I said before, all-purpose superstar. Okay, so frankly, they're going to Eagles December 3rd. That, in my mind, is probably it's the number one new teams in the NFC, and probably one of the two teams. And my money's on San Francisco is going to end up being the team that represents them in the Super Bowl. So let's move down the list a little bit. Kansas City. I know a lot of people were very good, as well they should be, that Taylor Swift didn't make the game in Minnesota. Travis Kelce had a very scary moment there where he got an ankle injury. Thought for a minute, and I was hoping it wasn't. Thank goodness it wasn't. But I thought for a minute it had blown out his hammy, but fortunately it was just a slight ankle sprain. He came back in, which was good. And Patrick Mahomes having a good year. Kansas City doesn't. They're 4-1, but they haven't looked sharp this season. Now, this was hard because honestly, you could make a case that the Dolphins are a better team than Kansas City at this point in time. Now, the Dolphins have turned, another back yesterday afternoon as Tua was phenomenal. Devon Achey was amazing. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert. I mean, that's a 4x100 relay team, okay? Miami is just phenomenal, and they're fun to watch. So, I don't know. Kansas City and Miami are you could flip it one way or the other. Miami could be number 3, Kansas City could be number 4. Flip the coin either way. You're not going to lose. Detroit is in our top 5. They're 4-1 also. The Lions continue to prove that they are for real 7 times over. They're starting with their season opening win at Kansas City. They've dominated up front offensively. They've got a great running game. And so, you got to pay attention to Detroit. Look, Buffalo's still in the mix at 3-2. Buffalo, after 3 basic romps, they can be excused for losing that game in London. Josh Allen and the rest of the team struggled. It was, remember that they lost to a Jaguar team that, number 1, is a good team. Number 2, has been in London for the past week. So they didn't have to worry about, the time change and all the other stuff that goes with it. They were there and had the opportunity to be, for all intents and purposes, the quote-unquote home team. So there you go. Now, the Jaguars, we have them at number 7, okay? We like the Jaguars, okay? They are coming around. Trevor Lawrence is Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne playing football for the second week in a row. And, last year they played well and looked good in the playoffs. So we like Jacksonville at the number 7 spot. Number 8, you got to put Dallas. Now, Dallas is 3-2. But the Cowboys on offense are limited. Now, played some other teams and beat them badly, but go badly. And they proved that some strong defenses with a pass rush can really give them grief. And I think most people didn't expect, you know, Dallas to give up as many points as they did, but they did. And they just didn't look good against the 49ers. But then again, not very many people look good against the 49ers. But Dallas, for us, is your number 8 team in the poll, in the NFL poll. Number 9, Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, let me get to this from a moment. The Steelers are a flawed football team, but there are a lot of flawed football teams, okay? What they're showing us is that Mike Tomlin has instilled that kind of mental toughness in Kenny Pickett after 17 games as, the starter for the Steelers now, that, I think he wanted. And the ability for the Steelers in the last quarter to come down and just, come through and do what they needed to do to win the football game is, what everybody wanted them to do on that Steelers staff. Now, TJ Watt and their defense has, came through and they really are playing as good a defense as anybody in their division, and certainly in the AFC. So they're there. Now we have the Baltimore Ravens at our number 10 spot. The Ravens are getting sloppy with Lamar Jackson. It's funny, you could look at that game between Baltimore and Pittsburgh yesterday in one of two ways. This is the way I choose to look at it. Baltimore played sloppy in the first half, but well enough to win. Pittsburgh played strong enough, and as I said before, they took Mike Tomlin's mental toughness situation and Kenny Pickett's ability to play within himself to beat the Ravens. The Ravens lost that game yesterday because they were simply just not disciplined, and that's not something you would expect from a team as talented as they are. But they had wide receivers who literally couldn't catch passes that Lamar Jackson was throwing. It's not Lamar Jackson's fault, okay? This is on the receivers. They can't catch footballs. They just can't, okay? Now, John Harbaugh, again, he's having some coaching issues from a standpoint of some of the stuff that he's doing. I haven't got a clue what he's trying to do. But that's not, it's not my problem. It is John's. And we'll see if he gets it sorted. The Buccaneers are number 11. They had the week off, okay? But they are looking pretty darn good. Now, the Bucs saw the Saints and the Falcons both win games. So they know that everybody in that division is getting really, amped up. And it's going to be fun to see how this whole thing rolls out. Baker Mayfield, keep your man. He's proven that he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he wants to play solid. And the defense is playing better than anybody expected him to. So right now, the Buccaneers are, our favorites in that division, and they may be a surprise team. This is a team that you better keep your eye on, because Baker Mayfield is doing a heck of a job there. Seattle, we have it in our number 12 spot. They really a bye, which helped them because Geno Smith needed something to keep him healthy, and this did it. Number 13 on our list, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are, they're holding steady in this situation. Now they've had injuries, of course, to Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett. They hope he's not going to linger, but look, you got to be careful in this situation. The Browns, we don't know. They're 2-2. We don't know exactly where they are there. We're giving them the benefit of the doubt. There's also 2-2 Green Bay, same thing, benefit of the doubt. Chargers 2-2. We think the Chargers are going to get better. Just how much better, we don't know. But Justin Herbert has the potential to be an MVP in this league, and especially in this new offense with Austin Eckler and Khalil Mack. If Khalil Mack and Brandon Staley and Austin Eckler continue to play well with Justin Herbert, then the Chargers could, and I say this strongly, could, tumble Kansas City in that AFC West. So keep an eye on them. Indianapolis, they just keep getting, banged up. They're our number 16 team. Anthony Richardson has lost again. Jonathan Taylor's been banged, but he hopefully will get better. Zach Moss, is done well. Gardner Minshew has done better as a backup, I think, than anybody expected him to do. But we're going to have to see how this AFC South plays out, because Jacksonville likely is going to be fine. Okay, we have number 17 Cincinnati at 2-3. Look, the Bengals saw Joe Burrow mostly healthy in the game against Arizona, and that makes a world of of difference. Okay, so if Joe Burrow is back, on point, then the Cincinnati Bengals could start a roll here that could take them past, the Steelers in that in the AFC North. So keep an eye on the Bengals. Keep an eye on Joe Burrow. Look, they've always gotten off to terrible starts in the past, and have, under Joe Burrow, have absolutely, done an outstanding job coming out. So I would not necessarily be too concerned about the fact that right now they're number 17, because they could bolt up this chart real fast. Number 18 on our list, that's the Saints. Now, they marched into New England and just rolled all over the Patriots. Dennis Allen's team is starting to play defense. Derek Carr didn't need too much, and he didn't give him too much from the quarterback standpoint. If New Orleans wins the division, it's going to be because of the defense. It's not going to be because of the offense. Okay, so the Saints continue. We'll find out. We'll kind of wait and see. Los Angeles Rams. Look, Cooper Kupp is back. Matthew Stafford is playing better. Puka Nacua, Tua Atwell. They should be better than 2-3. They absolutely should be, but they're just not playing consistent football. And so, as talented as they are, and they are talented, they're just not playing well. The Jets, on the other hand, showed us that Zach Wilson, he's doing better than I think anybody expected him to. He looked very comfortable in Denver, but then again, everybody looks comfortable against Denver. I think that the Jets are playing a better football than most people expected them to, and Zach Wilson is having a nice time. We appreciate what Zach's doing out there. But again, like I said with the Saints, if the Jets are to win, and it's going to be ridiculously tough for them to win in the division with the Dolphins and the Buffalo Bills. So, but if they're going to improve and make a run at it, it's going to be because of their defense. Okay, let's go back to the Falcons. They're getting some really good play from Desmond Ridder. The kid from the University of Cincinnati is doing well as a rookie quarterback who seems to be he and Kenny Pickett are doing a lot better than I think many people expected them to do. The defense is a work in progress in Atlanta, and we'll have to see. But again, we're on Tampa Bay in this division, and Atlanta's going to have to show us more than what they've shown so far. They're 3-2. Houston Texans are 2-3. I got to say, and I've said this when Amedeus has been here, that C.J. Stroud has surprised me. Okay, he's fallen back to earth. He didn't play well against Atlanta, but again, he's a young quarterback and he's learning his way. I would not, I'm kind of in in his camp right now. I think C.J. Stroud is playing much better than I ever expected him to. So I'm not gonna, I've doubted him and it's cost me. So I'm not gonna do that. Now, the 23, it's the Washington Commanders. Sam Howell is definitely a gamer with an arm and legs, but the offense is inconsistent, and Eric Bieniemy has done everything humanly possible to keep that team going. And so it's not the offense's problem. It's two things. One is the defense. Okay, that's got to get better. Okay, 100%. And Ron Rivera is a defensive coach, so I don't understand why Ron, Riverboat Ron can't get this damn thing straight on that side of the ball. Okay, Bieniemy, in my mind, Bieniemy's got to be the head coach of this football team in 2024, 100%. That's got to happen. Okay, Ron, if they move him to the front office, that's fine. If they let him go or whatever, God love you, Ron. Move on. It's time for Bieniemy to be a head coach. It's not his fault that the Commanders aren't better than they are, because they should be better than 2 and 3, to be honest. And Sam Howell is playing good ball, and he's a game player. I mean, the kid is really good. The problem is he doesn't have an offensive line. They're going to have more. I mean, he's got to be able to have some balance on that offense. They don't have a running game, because if you don't have an offensive line, you don't have a running game. And so that's a problem right now. They're leaning on Sam Howell way too much. Tennessee Titans in the number 24 position. Yeah, look, DeAndre Hopkins, all those guys, they're playing really outstanding football. Derrick Henry, but it's not enough. Not in that division, it's not. 25, the Raiders. Jimmy Garoppolo, is coming back. We'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to hurt them, that's for damn sure. Look, they don't have anything defensively beyond, Max Crosby. He's it. If you saw the Kansas City-Minnesota game, that's about all you need to know. The Vikings are just literally, they're literally just falling apart. I mean, let's be honest. There's just nothing there. Kurt, they're just, man, I don't get it. I mean, it's a 1-4 team. They should be better than that. But Kirk Cousins hasn't been able to do it. I'm not going to blame him 100% on what goes on in Minnesota. Game plan's just weak. They traded away his best running back. So, again, I'm not going to blame Kurt for not getting it done, but Minnesota looks pretty pathetic. And speaking of pathetic, please, I'm just going to say Arizona Cardinals. That's all we have to say. Goodbye. No sense wasting time on that. Giants, same thing. I mean, 1-4, 28. They're just god awful. I mean, they are just god awful. I don't know what's going on with them. They got crushed by Miami this weekend. The defense just stinks. They just can't play. I have no idea why. The Bills are next on their agenda. Saquon Barkley basically remains on the shelf with a bad ankle. So there you go. Speaking, I don't know if he's the worst team. They're the worst team in football or not, but 29 in our position, 1-4, is the New England Patriots. That's Mac Jones. We've said time and time again that Mac Jones is not the answer. This might be the year for Bill Belichick to go. Okay. I say that not because I think Bill Belichick's a bad coach. He is not. He is absolutely not. But what happened in New England is that Brady knew when to leave and Bill didn't. This is Belichick. You can't win if you don't have players. Belichick did a fantastic job. I mean, this is a Hall of Fame coach. So when I say Bill needs to leave, it is not because I disrespect him. It actually is because I don't want to see him go out this way. He needs that organization, and in many ways that team, is a teardown and a rebuild. Okay, that is something that I don't think Bill Belichick wants to do. I mean, when you've been to the pinnacle as many times as Bill Belichick has. I don't think he wants to go into full-blown, rebuild mode. And fortunately, the Patriots have been trying to put a Band-Aid on, just because, look, Mac Jones is not the guy for them. Okay, he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. That being said, that doesn't mean that Mac Jones is the only reason that the New England Patriots are 1-4. There's many reasons why Mac Jones is just the face of it, because quarterbacks always get that kind of stuff. As I said before, this is a tear down and start up all over again. I just don't feel that Belichick, that's something that Bill is into. I think he really needs to just take the time, go back out to Cape Cod, get on the boat, have a nice time, and just wait for the time for the Hall of Fame induction, because it won't be that long till it happens, Bill. But I think as far as the Patriots are concerned, it's a rebuild. I don't think Bill Belichick wants to be there for a rebuild. Okay, here's where karma's biting Sean Payton in the ass. The Denver Broncos are 1-4. They lost yesterday to the New York Jets. Payton said, and this, I can't believe Sean would say this. He's not a dumb man. Sean says that, the worst coaching job in football might just be the Jets' job. And, of course, yesterday the Jets beat them. Which just goes to prove, Sean, that you should keep your mouth shut about that kind of thing. And number two, that maybe the worst coaching job in football is the Denver Broncos and you, okay, at the moment, okay? It is, you have a absolutely dysfunctional offense with Russell Wilson. Is it Russ's fault? I don't think so. Again, this is a situation where it's not the coach, it's the players. He doesn't have the players to run Sean Payton's offense. This is not, you can't just parachute somebody into a bad team and expect them to win. He took the contract, so it's on him to make the Broncos win. And Sean can't do it. He can't do it because he doesn't have the bodies. He doesn't have people who are talented enough to complement Russell Wilson. That's on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, he's got nothing. So he's got Russ on the offense, but nothing on the defense. So, look, they're number 30. They could very well be the worst team in, well, not the worst. They're close, but they're not the worst team in football. New England, Denver, the Bears, thank you very much. One win, Justin Fields. That game was a game that Washington didn't show up to. So I'm not so certain how much further up the pecking order that the Bears are on this. And then the Carolina Panthers are 0-5. So there's your top 32 and where they are in the NFL. A lot of bad teams. I guess the league will call it parity. I don't think that's necessarily the best way to look at it from a parity standpoint, but we're going to have to look at it from that standpoint. We go from here to baseball, okay? The Texas Rangers, what an interesting situation they are, huh? Think about this. The Texas Rangers, the last week of the regular season, had ample opportunity to ball out and win the division, and they literally fell on their face. That gave Houston the opportunity to win the West. Meanwhile, Texas languished. Then they show up in Tampa. I should say St. Petersburg for those who don't know. That's where the Trop is. And they knock off the Rays 2 straight. This weekend, they took 2 straight away from the Orioles. It's very possible that Texas, as they go back to Texas for the next 2 games, may very well be a team that wins and makes it to the playoffs, to the from the divisional series to the American League Championship Series, where they literally beat the 2 best teams in the American League. It's very possible that happens. So, look, I'm not going to say that that Texas has got it in the bag yet because Baltimore's a very good baseball team, but at the moment, it certainly looks like Texas is in control. Meanwhile, I think we've seen this movie before. The Philadelphia Phillies just, they don't win during the when it comes to the Atlanta Braves. But my gosh, when they come to playoff time, how about it? Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber. Phillies are just the Phillies are doing what the Phillies do, and that is just beat Atlanta when the money's on the table. They literally just go into Atlanta and take the cash from them and just say, it's not today. You're not going to the playoffs anymore. This is us. It's our time. It's our turn. This Philly team, they just keep doing it. I don't know how they do it, but they just keep doing it. But good on them for their abilities to do that. They're an entertaining team. They're a fun team in Atlanta. I mean, come on. I mean, Atlanta. You would think Atlanta has the ability to win, and they could still. All right, they absolutely could still. But man, it's gonna be tough. Meanwhile, I don't really. The Dodgers got clobbered. Okay, on the Open. That being said, I don't give up on the Dodgers just because of what happened with the D-backs and Clayton Kershaw. Okay, that one we'll have to see. I do think, however, that we got a really good opportunity to see the Dodgers get back into this. And look, Atlanta could do exactly the same thing. Atlanta's just as talented, but there's something about this Phillies team that just seems to look, better than the Braves situation with the Phillies, and no shade being thrown because of Arizona. I just don't think the D-backs. I don't think in the end that the D-backs will be able to overcome the Dodgers, but we'll see how that works out. The Phillies certainly look, talented enough. And then, of course, the only one right now where we have an even situation is Houston and the Twins going last night into Minnesota and leveling the series last night, going into Houston. I'm sorry, and leveling the series last night. So they'll be 1-1 going back to Minneapolis for that series. But Houston is playing solid baseball, so that's gonna be tough for the Twins to come out of that one in that case. So right at the moment, and this is just for the moment, it looks like we may see an all Texas American League Championship Series, and we may see a Phillies Dodgers rematch in the National League. So that's all coming up baseball wise. Of course, we got those games tonight: Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, and D-backs. So let's keep a check on that one. Okay. So there you go. As I said before, tomorrow begins the NHL. We'll delve far deeper into that on what's going on in the NHL this season, and a lot of changes were made in the off season. We'll see how that works out. So some fun stuff there. Of course, tomorrow we'll have an opportunity to see Amedeus back. Looking forward to that. And so Green Bay and Las Vegas plays tonight. So keep an eye on that. That's where we go tonight. So as I said before, keep an eye on that one. And I know those of you who are looking forward to NASCAR, AJ Allmendinger basically came through in Charlotte, and now the playoff field is down to 8. Kyle Larson is, Kyle Larson, a lot of people think that's who's going to come out of that. And we'll see. But it's good times for Hendrick Motorsports. Kyle Busch came the closest to pulling off a historic moment, but he finished third in that must-win race situation. Busch, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, Brad Keselowski were eliminated from the championship contention. William Byron and, of course, Ryan Blaney, who have won the first two races in rounds of 12, entered Sunday not knowing that they could advance regardless of what happened. Denny Hamlin clinched a spot after the second stage on Sunday. Christopher Bell, Chris Buescher, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick, and Martin Truex Jr. also advanced. The takeaway from Sunday's race was that Byron finished second, followed, as we said, by Busch. Ty Gibbs and Joey Logano were also in the field, but that they are not in the advancing situation. Surprisingly, Allmendinger won. I say surprisingly because usually, as good a driver as he is, he usually ends up wrecking before he gets to that point. But we're getting down to the finals, and we'll see how things continue to go for the Dinger and the rest of the guys in NASCAR. Okay, and we'll see how that goes this week. We'll probably reach out to our buddy Rod Cape, who is a expert on NASCAR for that. All right, so here's what we got going tonight. We got baseball tonight. We got the National League, with the early game being the Phillies and the Braves, followed by Monday Night Football, which is Green Bay against Vegas, and then we top the night off with baseball, and that's the Dodgers hosting the Arizona Diamondbacks. Okay, all right, folks. So that's been that's where we are right now. We hope that you had a wonderful time. We've enjoyed very much having you with us this afternoon. Lots of good questions, and it's good and good to see Justin Lucas with us, and also Immaculate. Good to see you too, buddy. Always nice having you. Why is the Big 12 now considering expansion with Gonzaga? Justin, that's a good question. I really don't. If you remember back before they expanded to Arizona and with those two teams, and of course got Colorado and Utah, they had talked about adding Gonzaga. I think if they add Gonzaga, then I think they'll also put Connecticut in that situation, because that's, if you're going to add two basketball teams, which looks like that's where it's potentially going to happen. Now remember that Fox is not going to pay for this. So if the league wants to add Gonzaga and they want to add UConn, then that's going to be on them. Now they got $100 million from Oklahoma and Texas leaving. So to answer your question, they can give them, I don't think they even need to give them a full share. They probably, both UConn and Gonzaga would probably split it. Immaculate, what you got there? Talk about Gonzaga ended when they got the four corners. Right, exactly. Gonzaga was never Plan A. I still don't think so. This is playing out similar to UMAC when he used Gonzaga and UConn previously. Yeah, I think you're right. Except for Urmark wants UConn. I mean, he does want UConn in the league eventually. Now, whether he can get them in the league soon or later, I don't know. There's no rush to put UConn and or Gonzaga into it right now. As I said before, if they're going to add them, it's going to cost them, and that's money they're going to have to take out of their stuff. Yeah, I think eventually he wants them both. But Yormark wanted. I mean, Yormark's going to get UConn. I mean, that's. It doesn't matter when it's going to happen. He's going to get UConn. Um, I've spoken to a couple people at UConn. They are convinced he's going to get them. But it is what it is. Let's see what you. But it seems like they are rushing this Gonzaga move, which makes you think that it's part. Um, it's part of some. Well, the only thing it can be part of is the opportunity to get both UConn and Gonzaga in there. Because I don't think he's going to take Gonzaga without taking UConn. Let's say you got Immaculates here. Okay, hang on, let me drop him in. You didn't see you there, bud. How you doing?
Good. I figured instead of us just talking in chat, I'd go ahead and
That would be that would be a good thing to do.
be a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. I hope you haven't been there long. I was just
No, I
going
just
through the
popped
whole
in.
list of
I put in a couple
stuff.
things in chat, and I was like, "Wait a minute." He asked me to stop by. I haven't been able to follow much NFL. I do a lot of my work on Sundays, so
Oh, it's okay.
when you're talking previously, I really couldn't jump in and say much.
That's all right. I'm not sure that I said that much to begin with, but we'll see how that all works out. No, the only thing that there were a couple of things that tickled me over the weekend, and you were out there in the desert. That
Hmm.
game with the football game between USC and Arizona. Besides the fact that it made me lose most of sleep into Saturday night into early Sunday morning, was a very entertaining football game. I thought that was one of the most interesting things of the night, along with Mario forgetting that
Oof, yeah, that was bad luck.
kneeling down is probably your best way to end a football game instead of handing it off and fumbling it.
I
But
think on the ASU side, I think people realize now, hopefully, that Dillingham is for real. And
yeah,
previously,
Kenny.
he had someone else calling plays, and he kind of
Hmm.
took that over. And ever since he did, it's been a different team. And
Yeah,
I think people see that now.
I think so, and I think that this is a killer Pac-12. My God, there's not a bad team really in there. You don't have an off night.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure. Maybe Stanford, but
Well,
uh,
okay, fair.
but
That's fair.
across the board, it is definitely the best conference right
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I just it's there's that Oregon Washington's game's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's gonna. I think game day is going up there.
Yeah, they are. It's funny because somebody was telling me the other day, well, we really need it's you got to be on television for this, that, and the other, because nobody's. How are you going to recruit somebody to go from, how can a team in out west recruit somebody from say Texas or someplace like that? And I'm like, you do realize that Michael Penix Jr., the kid who's quarterbacking Washington, played at Tampa Bay Tech in Tampa, Florida, which last time I checked, and I've been there, that's a hell of a long flight from Tampa
He
to.
was he was
He
at
was in
Indiana
Indiana.
too.
He
Yeah,
was in
and
Indiana, and in fairness, and I don't think a lot of people are realizing this. It's the portal, okay? The
this
portal
is the
is where
future.
people are getting their players, all right?
Mhm.
They don't, do they care if they're being watched on television? I'm sure they do. More so, frankly, for the family than for them. But, Michael Penix wants to be a professional, NFL quarterback. And he saw in Washington that they had a system because he knew the coordinator. And the coordinator sold him on the concept that if you come to Washington, this can work. And it did. And the
Mhm.
same exact thing happened to Bo Nix. Bo
Yep.
Nix, you know, so when he went to Oregon, he realized, wait a minute, this is more of what I'm supposed to be able to do, and so it's worked for them. And I think that's where the portal has been very helpful to.
Cam Ward at Washington State as well.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. But with
Yeah,
this
and
Gonzaga and and UConn thing. I, I think you hit the point where I think that Brett was was teasing the Gonzaga thing if the four corners didn't pan out,
Right.
and it's kind of been brought back if they want to add Gonzaga and UConn. I just don't see him adding just one. I don't think he's going to add Gonzaga if he doesn't add UConn. It wouldn't make any sense because it just makes no sense in that regard. But I think that I mean they've got the money left over from the Oklahoma and Texas leaving. So my guess would be that they would go forward and pay them out of that. I don't because they're not
Well,
going to get paid from Fox.
I've had a working theory, and I
Hmm.
didn't want to bring it too much, but I would say it's his MO. He uses Gonzaga and UConn, and then it brings
Hmm.
in other conversations.
Right.
And when you look at the location of Gonzaga, you got to look at who else is right around there and say, we've had comparisons that, oh, well, they're interested in this now because of the SMU deal with the ACC. Well, part of that deal was California and Stanford. It
Right.
wasn't just SMU, and SMU alone doesn't work. So if that's kind of the way that they're looking at this, well, then who does Gonzaga pair up with? But
Well,
you can't
let's
talk
just say
about that
Oregon State and
until
Washington
yeah.
State are
But
not
you
that
can't
far
talk
away.
about them. You can't talk about them for your conference until their
Well,
lawsuit
yeah,
with their own conference is over. So,
sure.
it's kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We're
Yeah,
looking into the Pacific Northwest, but we can't really talk about it and consider them officially because they're in a lawsuit with their own conference.
right, right. But if they can figure out, look, if they bail, if somehow it doesn't work out for them,
Hmm.
I they would be tremendous ads to the Big 12.
But I would also say to your mark, there's no way he's doing that alone. Like that's been
No.
done. So if he really wants to push basketball much more quickly
Hmm.
than it was looking like he could, then if say the Big Ten and the SEC and
Hmm.
ACC and everyone else wants to get to the 2024-2025
Right.
payouts due to the pack,
Hmm.
this helps everyone. So your mark
Yeah.
basically, maybe he's finding a way to leverage this to get what he wants sooner. I don't know, but
Maybe.
it's just
Maybe.
interesting that Gonzaga is up there, and if they're looking in the Pacific Northwest, there's a couple other schools to go with.
Yeah. You think?
Yeah.
I think that would be. I think that. Look, I hope somehow, some way, that things work out for Oregon State and
Sure.
Washington State because
Yep.
they really don't deserve to be on the outside looking in.
Nope. And it's turned into bad PR that I don't think anyone really kind of foresaw. We're in uncharted territory right now. So
Yeah, yeah,
so
I think
giving people benefit of the doubt, I'd say no one was kind of expecting this. I think it was just kind of a comedy of errors.
no, and I think that the lawsuit the lawsuit was absolutely necessary. You
Hmm.
can't trust what you just couldn't trust what was going to happen. I mean, it's just there was no way in hell that Oregon State and Washington State were going to get a fair share. You know, when everybody else is leaving the league and had a chance for one last drop by the ATM machine on their way out the door.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think that was going to happen. They were definitely not going to leave them with much on the way out. But
But
we'll
even
see how this
even
plays out.
even worse, if they didn't have that temporary restraining order,
Right.
the other schools technically not saying that they would have, but they technically could have also dissolved the conference.
They could have, yeah, because they had the amount
They had 10, yeah.
yeah, they
So
had the number to do it.
that not saying that was the plan, but it could have been.
It could have been. It could very well have been. It would have. There would have been a blowback of some sort, but given the fact that that 10 of them have other places to go, it would not have worried them for long, I would imagine. And I don't think that I don't think that either the Big 12 or the Big 10 wanted to have members of their conference in court, because that's what would have ended up happening. There would have been lawsuits, and I don't think Tony Petitti wanted to see that in the Big 10, and I'm quite sure that Yormark didn't want to see it in the Big 12 either.
Yeah,
So
and none of them have joined in.
no,
The lawsuit
no,
has just been purely on the pack. So
for now.
yeah,
But what I'm saying
no,
is, if they had they gone without and taken something on the way out, that could have been, they could have enjoined them in the lawsuit, and I don't think they wanted to see
possible.
that.
But the Hancock from the CFP
Yeah.
was saying how events out west where it happened, it was just all really weird and unforeseeable. For some reason, these guys all seem to have been caught off guard by what Washington State and Oregon State did, and I don't know how really to read that, but it would seem that they had some other plan of this being taken care of, and it didn't play out.
Well, I mean, I've spoken to a couple of people who are involved with the CFP
Mm-hmm.
who didn't really, who never thought the pack would dissolve, and they thought that there would be some way somehow that they would stay around, and the fact that they did dissolve was something that was left them totally flat-footed. They felt that the league itself, because of the teams that were there, okay, they knew they were losing, SC and UCLA, but they didn't think that they were going to be losing the others. And I think that's where
Yeah,
things went sideways really quick.
very
And
quickly.
I think that's what, more than anything, it's like, okay, on one Friday morning we had a conference. We now don't have it anymore, and you know, then there's the waking up and going, okay, we don't have a conference, but wait a minute, there's these two teams out there who,
Mhm.
oh, by the way, are not going to sit there and
Yep.
not, not going to get their just due, and so yeah, I think that part, 100% kept them there, but I don't know where from that point, you know, the uncharted territories that they just had those two schools out there going, okay, where are they going to go? And there's no way you can go from taking 23, $24 million a year
To 5.
to 4 or 5,
Yeah,
or even
it's
10 for that matter.
yeah, it would just tear apart their athletic departments.
Right. And in fairness to the fact that neither one of them particularly run their organizations that well, it doesn't really matter. That's not.
Oregon State seems to be a little bit better, but yeah, Washington State's had some very public problems here recently.
Yeah, and look, if you want to go down the list, right, you can go into every conference in whether it's a Big Ten or the, you know, I mean, there's there. I mean, I don't know how many people realize that Alabama owes somewhere in the neighborhood of $240 million in debt on the stadium that they just added, so that they could have 100,000 people, in Tuscaloosa. All right, so there's debt on all this stuff, and people these
Yeah.
there's even what one would think would be the best run organizations, right, or athletic departments, aren't always the best run organizations. So we'll find out how that plays out in the future. But certainly Washington State is not an outlier. They're just part of a, Rutgers. Some of the others just not playing as well as they normally do, from a
Yeah,
standpoint
cool.
of how organizations are run.
Yeah, but despite how bad the AD might have been run, they are sitting pretty with their president right on that CFP board. So,
No, there's no question
I
about that.
mean, I know there's a lot of people out there who think that there's just not enough money involved with the CFP for it to matter. And that might be the case right now, but they just don't seem to get the math that points to 2024 being worth like 3 times the amount of what it is right now. and
Well,
it's a serious amount to consider.
it's it is the it's the we talked about, and we've talked about this before, and we'll
We have, yep.
wrap it up here in the
Yes,
not too
yeah,
distant future. But and we'll have another conversation about this another time. But this is the last big contract. We talked about how this is the last big contract TV wise for the conferences. Well, this is the last probably big TV contract for CFP, and everybody wants it.
Mhm.
And I think that's where CFP is. Bill Hancock and those folks are very savvy.
Mhm.
Michael Kelly, who was the president, the first president of the CFP. Well, he was actually the chief operating officer for the CFP. Is now the athletic director at one of my alma maters, the University of South Florida.
Yes.
Michael's a good guy, and your conversations with Michael, these guys run this operation, the CFP. They know, they're very savvy in what that money is going to be. Okay, they have gamed this out. They know how much money they can get. They're very savvy about where they put the championship game. They know how much money's out there, and they realize that this could be, and I think this is what they want. They want a Super Bowl-ish
Mhm.
type situation where it's
Yes.
not just ESPN involved.
Nope.
They want all of the networks, as many as the networks out there, and the streamers involved. They'll take the streaming money for the early games, and then they'll take money from NBC, ABC, and Fox for everything else. And
Yeah.
they'll rotate that, and NBC if they're involved, and or CBS if they choose to be involved, and they'll take that money and they'll that rotation, which is like a Super Bowl rotation. That's what they want. They see what's going on in the Big Ten, where they've got all linear with with the streaming coming from Peacock and from Paramount Plus. They'll take they understand it. They're not afraid of the streaming. They're not afraid of the linear. They know the money's there. They know the money will be on the table, and they know whatever they're asked, they'll get pretty damn close to it.
Yep.
So you're right. I mean, there's going to be a massive amount of money that that the CFP is going to have on at their beck and call. They don't want to screw it up,
No.
and they're not going to let something like this screw it up.
No, and there's a lot, like you say, in a future time, we could go deep into 2024, 25, and especially with 26, because we have that could be entirely different. It's an entirely new contract set up. But I find it interesting what you bring up in terms of USF, and you're saying the guy in charge there
Michael Kelly.
He had a position right within CFP to see where everything's going.
Right.
And that shows with USF. USF has been making a lot of good decisions in terms of how to position themselves going forward should some opportunities arise. You got AAU status. You've got a new stadium coming. Great location. So I find that I didn't realize that connection, but that does explain USF and all the moves they're doing.
Well, Michael was heavily involved prior to the reason the CFP went to Michael. Michael was part of the Tampa Sports Authority, and he met Bill Hancock when he was working to get Super Bowl 55 in Tampa. He and Hancock had worked to get the NCAA men's basketball championship in Tampa, St. Petersburg. They work with the Vinik organization. So when he was asked, Michael Kelly was asked to go work at CFP. He was very sophisticated in how to upsell the championship game. He put the championship game and explained to Hancock how a championship game should be marketed like a Super Bowl would be, where you have people, you have multiple people wanting it, and you figure out what is your best option from that standpoint. Moving it back and forth east to west, that sort of thing. And Tampa hosted the third one, which was right after the Arizona one. When I think that was the year that Clemson won, and they meaning Tampa, with the Vinnick organization. They host this. They have the NCAA Women's Championship. They now are in that rotation. They're in the rotation for the Frozen Four. So they host a lot now of the NCAA Championship events. Those events are held at the Emily Arena in downtown, and that arena is run by which is run by the Vinnick group, which owns the Lightning, and so what Michael did is USF had been involved with the marketing the marketing was, they were part of ESPN's marketing gang. And the first thing he did was sever that. He didn't want them involved with that because that, they kind of layer things, all right? So there's a pecking order. He didn't want in that pecking order. He wanted the ability to play his own, to
play the field,
play his own game.
Yep.
So the Vinnick group stepped up and said, all right, we'll take the rights. We will pay you for the marketing rights. And so, so Michael slowly but surely has moved, the game along. He also went out and hired, Golish to be the new head football coach. That's paying off. And again, they hired a new basketball coach, which we don't know how that's going to work, but it works. You would imagine that things. So he's going out and doing, hopefully, the right things, and doing things the right way. And I think that, and it was funny because people said to me, well, they had no chance, with regards to the Big 12 whenever when they were adding people.
Yep.
But he had he had a nice long conversation with Bowlesby, and Bowlesby just said, Michael, it's just not time right now. We can't do this now. We can't do it because of the fact that you have to get, they had to work on fixing the coaching situation, and they got some work to do. And believe me when I tell you, there's not from Tony Petitti all the way down to to a number of different commissioners who there's no one who doesn't know Michael Kelly, and that's what you want if you've got an athletic director. That's all you can ask for. And the money's there, the market's there, everything is there for them. Timing is always going to be the problem. That's going to be the key.
It is. And I think that there's going to be a spot for them in the Big 12
I think
eventually.
so.
But
Yeah.
the power conference consolidation needs to happen, needs to get worked out. But once it does, you can't look at USF and say that that's not a great partner to put in there with UCF and give Big 12 two spots to Florida. Like it's a no-brainer.
And I think I think that the thing that Michael has preached is just it's time. It's take your time. Don't rush. Let's get this right, and get the play. He wants the right partners, and I think that's. It's showing how you do things the proper way, and I think that's all you can ask. Is somebody who knows what they're doing. It costs the university a lot of money to hire them, but if you're going to do this, you do it, and the commitment is there. And I think that it will eventually pay off. It's
just
tough to go otherwise.
Yeah, they'll get there. It's just a matter of time. But
yeah,
I'll probably have to break off here pretty soon. But I just want to leave
too.
with one thing that you were talking about earlier, and you brought up Michael Penix.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, in the new way they're going to have to start grading these quarterbacks for NFL play, he should be the number one guy. He's come up having to play a tough game against superior athletes. You know, you have to work on your
Sure.
windows and your reading much
Sure.
more difficulty. And now he's proven it at Washington. So, you know, a lot of people talk Caleb Williams number one. If I was picking, I'd take Penix.
I would agree. And that's no shade on Caleb.
Nope, not
you
at all.
know.
But he's had a good at Oklahoma. He's had a good
Yep.
at USC. He's always had better athletes. He's had bigger windows for passing into, and he's always had to
Sure.
rely on his legs to sometimes make things happen. Whereas Penix,
Right.
that guy just finds tiny windows and palms the ball. I mean, he's so impressive.
I saw Michael from a friend of mine. I mean, growing up in the Tampa area. Now, of course, living in D.C., but I still have plenty of people who call me and say, "You got to see this kid,"
He
and
is something.
he's a freak, and he's and the other part, and we'll wrap things up together on this one. But we are going to do one of these things one day very soon. We're going to sit down and we're going to rip the Band-Aid off of what's going to happen in 2023, 2024, 2025.
All right.
So we will do that soon. Because I
That's gonna be
truly want your input on this. I really appreciate what your knowledge is in it and respect it.
I appreciate that. That's a deep conversation, though. That one's we're going to be digging deep on that.
That's gonna you're gonna have to.
It's going to
Friends-
ruffle some feathers.
Well, yeah, friends and family who want to watch that, bring a pad and a pencil because you're gonna have to. This is going to be a master class, okay? Because there's a lot of things here that you're not going to quite necessarily, and I'm not going to say you're not going to get it because that's not. I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm simply saying you're going to have to write it down because you're going to have to look some of this stuff up. But anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch, what you're talking with Michael, is that I do believe Washington, with Penix, everybody I've spoken to who grades quarterbacks and grades, Penix is right there. I mean, they're all saying to me,
Yeah.
look, he's, he
wows you.
wasn't on our radar. He
Yeah,
wasn't
he's
on
so
our radar,
amazing.
but he is now. And so, yeah. And I'll tell you one other guy. We talked about him just a second ago, and that's Bo Nix. A lot of people have graded him higher than they put him right there with Caleb. So that's pretty tall cotton.
My
getting to that
sneaker, my other sneaker to get into this based upon what he's gone through and where I think he's at and how quickly he could make a difference on a team is Hartman
Oh yeah,
for Notre Dame because of,
Yeah.
he had to come up from Wake Forest against
Yep.
better talent,
it's
better,
good choice.
and they did great. And I think at Notre Dame, I got to say, it's not him. They don't have great skill players there, unfortunately. But when he does well, man, he'll wow you. Like he puts those balls into tight windows, and he is definitely a great leader. I got Penix and him as the sneakers that might surprise some people come NFL draft time.
Well, he reminds me of a Kenny Pickett with a better arm. And I'm talking about Hartman. And it'll be interesting to see that game with Notre Dame this week.
Yeah, I think he's ready day one NFL leadership style. I mean, he's what 26, 25 years old.
Well, yeah.
It's just to me
Yeah.
it just seems like if you can get that guy at a good
He's a
spot.
very mature kid.
Yeah. So, but anyways,
All
looking
right, well,
forward to
look,
that
thank you.
conversation you're bringing up, and down for the challenge. And I know
Good.
you'll put together something pretty amazing. So,
Well, we'll have some fun. Well, look, everybody, it's been a pleasure having you with us this afternoon. Good to have you sneak by here toward the end of the show, but anytime you
having me.
come, it's always a treat. So have a lovely day to you and to everyone else, and we will see you tomorrow, everybody, 2 o'clock. All right, take care.
have a good day.